Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you're joining us. I'm thrilled to introduce our special guest today, Nikki Vasconez, a professional communicator and the founder of the Professional Animal Communicator Accelerator, where she teaches students worldwide to develop their intuitive abilities and build full-time careers helping animals. She believes there is no greater gift than truly understanding and communicating with the animals we love. Nikki, it's a great pleasure to have you join us today. Welcome.
Hi, Lynn. Thank you so much. I can't wait to chat with you today about all things animals.
Yes, we have that in common. So, Nikki, you're known for teaching people how to telepathically communicate with animals, but you didn't always do this. Can you share your journey from being a practicing attorney to doing this work full time?
I'd love to, Lynn. I think a big misconception out there is that you have to have a special gift to communicate with animals. And I didn't even know that telepathic animal communication was possible until I was 28 years old. So, like you said, I used to be an attorney. I had, I don't know, a 2 hour commute one way each day. I was miserable. I was stressed out, but I loved animals. We have dogs. And it wasn't until 28 years old that I learned from a local massage therapist that she could talk to animals. And when she said that, something inside of me just ignited. It turned on. And I went home and I Googled animal communication books and bought like the first five that came up. And what was really fascinating, Lynn, is that in every single one of those books by all different authors, every single author said everyone can learn to do this. And most of those authors hadn't learned themselves until they were in their 50s. So I was in my late 20s and I'm like, well, if they can do it, like, why can't I? And then I'm going to have a lot more years to keep doing it, right? So it was something that I learned to do. And once I finally convinced myself that it was real, because I was very skeptical in the beginning, I was like, what do you mean we can talk to animals? Like, I always, on some level knew if my dog wanted to go out or was hungry or like little things like that. But a full-fledged back and forth dialogue, I was like, can I actually do this? So once I convinced myself that it was possible and I was doing it, that's when I gradually transitioned from full-time lawyer, part-time lawyer, and then full-time animal communicator. And it's been about probably 6 years that I've been doing animal communication full-time.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, it is amazing. I truly believe it's our birthright, and I think it's amazing that more of us share the gift, share that ability for people
Yeah.
to do it themselves. That really is a gift to everybody who's on this plane who loves animals. So that's so wonderful. So I understand, Nikki, now that you take complete beginners, many who have had no experience whatsoever,
Mhm.
and you help them to become professional animal communicators. So can you just outline a bit of the key stages of that journey for us?
Sure. The first key stage really is just the belief that it's possible for you. You might not fully believe you have the ability, but my husband and I always say, because we work together in our business, if you have the desire to do this, you have the gift, period. Because as a human being, you innately have the ability to do this. So right now we have about, a little over 160 students all over the world. And I would say probably 90% of them, maybe a little bit more, had no idea that this was even possible, let alone that they could learn how to do it until finding myself or one of my students online. So many of my students, I mean, almost everyone is so skeptical that like they believe I can do it. They believe my student who they saw on social media can do it. They don't yet think that they can do it. So the stages really are the desire to do it, the love for animals. That has to be the root of all of it. You can't just come into our program wanting to make money. It's never going to work. You have to have that love for animals. And then having just really the dedication and the desire to commit yourself to learning this. It's just like learning a new language. If you want to learn Spanish, you have to practice every day. You can't just like think about it and want to
Hmm.
know how to speak that language. You have to practice and study. So people join from with no regardless of what level they have, whether they've never even heard about this, whether they're already practicing animal communicators that want to refine their skills. And it's the awareness that it's possible and the desire to practice. I am so big on practice. Like you could read all the books in the world, you could watch all the videos, do all the things, but if you're not actually doing real sessions, you're never going to get better. And a lot of students are like, well, I need to learn all these different things before I can do a practice session. And I'm like, no, because innately within you, you have this ability. So you just have to fine tune. It's a muscle. It's a skill to develop. Just like if you go to the gym, you get stronger arms, right? So it's, you got to practice. And then through our curriculum, we teach students like how to ask better questions, how to dig deeper, how to get more detailed, specific information from the animals, how to turn it into a session. Like it's something, it's just skill, right? So it's practice is huge. And if you're willing to practice over and over and over and over again, then you're going to get to where you want to be. And if you want it to be a business, it's absolutely something you can do, because if there's one thing that I think all humanity has in common is we love our animals. And the thought of being able to communicate with our animals and improve their lives, like every animal guardian loves that, and there's nothing better. So it really, to sum it up, it really is the desire to do it, the awareness that it's possible, the desire to do it, the being willing to practice. And I think the final stage, Lynn, is not being afraid of quote failing, because not every session you do is going to be 100% accurate. Not every session I do is 100% accurate, because we're human beings. We're not perfect. So if you're willing to be, if you're willing to accept that you're going to get an email from a client one day that says, like not everything made sense here, I don't really understand that, or this was just wrong, were you talking to the wrong animal? Like if you're willing to go through that as you're strengthening your skills, and it won't completely derail you, then you're going to do great, and it's going to be a great journey for you.
Yeah, it's amazing. I truly believe that the rubber really meets the road when through practice, you know,
Yeah.
and you made some excellent points. You made some excellent points, you know, that you do have to be willing to be wrong. Or, you know, I've also even had clients maybe wonder if what came through was wrong, and then 2 weeks down the road, email back and go, hey, now I know why that came through. It all makes sense now.
Yes.
So both those scenarios can happen, which I'm sure you've also seen as well.
I've had clients email me 2 years later. Hey, Nikki, remember that one message that we really couldn't figure out? I understand it now. So,
Yeah.
like you said, it's a fine line between, is it actually wrong, or is it just not understood yet? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So I understand that you've had some students that have actually quit their full-time jobs and
Mhm.
built new careers for themselves doing this work, some with massive wait lists. Can you share a couple of real life examples of what's possible for people when they commit to this path?
Sure. I have one student, Lori. She was hands down the most skeptical person that we ever met with. We interview all of our prospective students before they join our program, because I want to make sure that what I have to offer is even what they're looking for. I want to make sure they're a good fit. So people can't just go online and purchase my course. They have to meet with us first. So Lori, we had so many Zoom calls with her because she just was so skeptical that this is something she could learn. At the time, she worked at an accountant's office, and I said, Lori, trust me, like I'm not a special snowflake. This is something you can do if you show up. So I always tell my students, you can start charging. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but our, what I call a mandatory recommendation is within 6 months, you'll be able to start charging. I want people to take those 6 months to build the confidence, build a client pool, a client pipeline, and really harness their abilities. So at the and Lori wanted to start charging way before 6 months. And I said, trust the process, trust the process. So she waited. At the 6 month mark, she launched her business, started social media, exploded on TikTok. She has over 20,000 people on her wait list right now. She quit her job in April of 2025, and she's been doing this full time. So within 6 months of practicing and doing practice sessions and, really committing to this work, she launched her full-time business, and now she's doing it full time. I have another student, Amber. She was a hospice nurse, and she had been studying with me for a while, but didn't wasn't quite ready to transition out of her nursing career. And something happened, and her position was let go. So she's like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And she started social media, followed the steps, and now, I mean, she's booked out several months. And she recently sent us over a video testimonial that she replaced her nursing income. She's making just as much money as when she was a nurse. So like, and I have so many other students that are doing this part-time because they like their job. They don't really want to quit yet. Some students are like dog trainers or animal behaviorists, and they're kind of combining the two worlds. But it's something that no matter who you are, like this can be your career if you want it to happen. And a common concern people ask me is like, well, Nikki, like, aren't we all going to be competing with each other? Like if Lori has 20, but I'm like, no, Lori has 20,000 people on her wait list. Amber's booked out. Jessica's booked out. Like I have thousands of people on my wait list. Like there are billions of people on this planet and they all love animals. So my philosophy is like the more people that we can train to communicate with animals, the better because as you know, I'm sure you know, Lynn, like we can only talk to so many animals a day. Like we can't do this all day long. It's very energy taxing. So like the more people out there that are talking to the animals, just the more animals' voices heard, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think it's really wonderful how the human animal bond has changed so much or has been enhanced so much over the last, I don't know, 5 decades maybe or so, three, four, anyways, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really great to see. And it is. I do find that it is the like in my career I've noticed that people who are really scientifically based or engineers sometimes have the hardest times getting just letting go and believing in themselves and allowing for this to happen. But once they do, they really, especially veterinarians for example, once they do, they really just click in because they have all that other knowledge to combine with it, which is so wonderful. So yeah, that's great. I'm glad that that's happening for you. So, in your experience, in your work, what have you seen as some of the primary blocks that you find that people have on their journey to becoming animal communicators? Because I think that'll be really helpful for our listeners.
I think one of there's several. The first that comes to mind, let's go to the business side of it, is people have a block with social media. They're nervous to put themselves out there. They're nervous to make videos. They're nervous to talk about the sessions. And, my program is designed of the whole vision is helping people make six-figure businesses. So I know people all over the world are listening to this. So what I mean by that is $100,000 USD or more. And people can't fathom like making money doing this. And my thing is like if you want to build this six-figure business, I'm sure you could do it through word of mouth and your local community. That's just not my story. Mine was social media and email marketing. So a big hurdle is social media. But I always tell people like, listen, you might be thinking it's scary to talk on social media, but when you're talking about something you love and that you're so passionate about, you're not like putting on a show. Like when I was an attorney, I despised giving workshops because I felt like everything I was delivering was I was reading off of a script. I didn't care what I was saying. I didn't even know what I was saying sometimes. But with this, I could talk in front of a camera all day long about this because I love it. So that's one of the hurdles. But apart from the business side, like the second block with learning animal communication is people really don't see how it's possible that they could ever do this. And they, like you said, with the scientific mindset, like they want it to be messages come through in a very specific way, the same time every time, that they're going to know 100% that was the animal's voice in their head, not their own. But as you know, Lynn, I'm sure when the messages come through, often they're in our own voice, like we're reading a book silently to ourselves. And messages can come through in so many ways. One of my lessons in the program is 11 different ways, well, 12, but the one doesn't really count. The 11 different ways that messages can come through. So it's learning your unique way of receiving messages and being open to knowing that it will evolve over time. So I guess this to summarize, it's just like knowing that it's going to sound like you're talking to yourself and making things up. And it's going to feel like that for a very long time. But then as you start doing practice sessions and getting feedback from your clients, your practice clients, you eventually start convincing yourself that this is real because there's no way you would have known that detail or that message about that family had the animal not told you. And even though it sounded like you were talking to yourself or making things up or remembering something from your past that really was something in their life, you eventually, the light bulb clicks of the awareness of like, okay, maybe something is happening here. And the timeline for that evolution with students is vastly different. Some people get it right away, other people it takes a year. Like I can't give a time frame, but that's the number one. It's like, am I making things up? And it's like, no, just trust the process and keep on going.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how many different ways things come through. I remember when I was new at this many decades ago now, I was talking to my sister's cat. She had taken on two cats from a client of mine who was moving to another province in Canada, and had a baby. And I don't know, the cats weren't getting the attention they deserved. So she decided to rehome them. And my sister took them both. And one of them was a 16-year-old male orange cat, and he was a deep orange colored cat named Whiskey, and he was an amazing cat. He was like a shaman. And it's
Oh,
funny because the first time I ever talked to him, he was like an English butler. He had like a perfect accent, talked so differently than any other animal I talked to at that time. And I've had some talk solely in pictures. So I know
mm-hmm.
you mentioned in your training that you have a list of 11 ways. Would you mind just sharing a few for listeners, a few of the different ways that you teach that animals can talk to us?
Sure. The one is what you just said, Lynn, images. You might see an image of a place or a couch or a room that you've never actually seen before. That's the animal transferring something in their life through a picture. You can get messages through words. Random words pop up in your mind. That might look like, I'm excited to go to grandma's house this weekend. Okay, like, or you might just get red couch or big tree. You might get feelings. You might all of a sudden be overcome with feeling extreme happiness or sadness or anxiety that in the beginning you might mistake as yours, but it's actually the animal. You might get you might feel a sensation in your physical body. Your right butt cheek keeps itching, or your right foot keeps aching. And it could mean that the animal has a rash on their butt, or they, sprain their ankle. So you feel the animal's pain. You might see colors. Maybe the house was recently colored. Messages can come through metaphorically or symbolically, which is a struggle for a lot of people in the beginning because let me think of an example. Um, oh, this was a real example for my student. We have practice sessions every month, and so the message from the animal came through. She thought that that there was a fireplace in the living room, and the animal's like the dog really loves the fireplace, the living room, like the warmth of the fireplace, and I'm seeing the fire glowing, and like they really enjoy this. Turns out there wasn't actually a fireplace, but the wife always turns the heat up really high in the house, and the husband's always saying the house is too hot. It's like an inferno in here. So what seemed like a very literal message, and messages can be very literal. Maybe there was a fireplace, but in this specific situation there was not. The message was not meant to be literal. It was symbolic of like a fire. So one of the big hurdles is students have to remember to remind your clients and remind ourselves to be open-minded. Just because you thought it was a literal message, you're not wrong because it turned out to be metaphorical or symbolic. You, as the animal communicator, you need to know to coach your client. Okay, you don't have a fireplace, but is your room really hot? Like you have to be able to think outside the box in that way because that was a very accurate message. It doesn't matter that the student thought it was literal. It's still accurate even though it was symbolic. We just have to sometimes dig a little bit deeper to get there. So those are, I think, the most common ways that messages come through. Some are easier for people to accept than others, but it's a beautiful
Yes.
journey along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that because I've seen messages come through every which way, and I think it's so great for people to know that, especially people who are starting out because they may not have that experience. And I think that's wonderful. And openness, I think, is so key in this field in general.
Mm-hmm.
From those learning how to communicate to those whose animals we're communicating with, the openness that each of them can have can really help to enhance the results and really create the magic, I think.
Yeah, and Lynn, I just
Um,
thought of
yeah, go ahead.
my favorite way messages come through. I forgot to say. I just thought of it. I call it the shortcut. I don't know if that's the proper term. That's what I call it. But sometimes messages can come through like you will think of your childhood home or your grandfather or something in your life, and the animal is taking a shortcut. So maybe a room in their house mirrors what your childhood bedroom looked like. So rather than the animal describing the room or showing you a picture, which is maybe takes a little bit more work, they just remind you of something in your life that mirrors their life, and that's their way of communicating with you. So I always tell my students, if you are in the middle of a session and you randomly, quote, randomly think of something in your life, do not discredit it, because that very well might be and usually is something in the animal's life.
Yeah, everything can be important information. That's
Yeah.
a really great thing for people to know. So, Nikki, if there is one misconception that you wish you could completely dissolve about telepathic animal communication, especially for skeptics, what would that be?
It's that our animals understand every single thing we are doing, thinking, saying, being, feeling, all of it. Without you taking my course, without you training, without you doing anything, your animals are already receiving everything. So if there's one thing that I wish I could tell every single human on this planet is that talk to your animal like you would a family member. If you're feeling sad, tell them why. If you're about to go on vacation, tell them where you're going and when you're coming back, because they understand everything. If you have a baby, explain to your animal like what changes might that look like and how there's enough love to go around, and the routine might be a little bit different, but you still love them. Like, they understand everything. And a lot of people, especially the skeptics, they're like, oh, it's just a dog, it's just a horse. Like, they don't care. They just ball, food, toy. And I'm like, no, no. Like, they understand everything. So even if you don't think that you could have a back and forth dialogue with your animal, just know that they already have the ability to do that. So the more that you can tell them the specific details of your life, the more you're going to enhance their life, and very easily and very freely. Like, it doesn't cost anything to do that. So if you're wondering how to improve your animal's life in a very simple, cheap way, just talk to them like you would a human being.
Yeah, that's such wonderful information, and knowing that they understand so much more. I once had a client say to me, something was coming up, and I was explaining it to her, and she said, and it was kind of like a lot of chaotic energy, and I was, saying, what is all this about? And she's like, well, we're getting a divorce, but we haven't told the animals yet. And I'm like,
Yeah.
hello. They live in
Right?
the house. I think they have a pretty good idea that something's going on.
Yeah, Lynn, I can't tell you how many times I've had people say, well, my dog is scheduled for surgery next week, but we didn't tell him. Like, what's the best way to break the news? I'm like, well, sorry
Yeah.
to tell you, they already know about it. So just like reassure them that this is in their benefit. Like, they know.
Yes, yes. You could be talking to my little puppy. He's getting neutered on February 3rd. So
Oh,
yeah. So Nikki, that's wonderful. Do you have anything that you want to quickly share with the listeners, like an upcoming workshop or an event or a program or a book or something that you might want to tell the listeners about?
sure. So I transitioned away from doing my introduction to animal communication workshops because I was finding that people wanted more, and they wanted more than what I was able to provide in like a 4 hour workshop. So I actually now have an online training program. It's called the Professional Animal Communicator Accelerator. And we really take people that might have never even heard about animal communication prior to listening to this summit, all the way to building full-time sustainable careers. So that's the program that we offer. And we just want people to transform their love for animals into a profitable career, because I was a miserable attorney. I hated what I was doing. I don't like using the word hate, but I was miserable. And now I love what I do. And one of my biggest messages to people is like, we need money in the modern world, right? Like, we all have bills and mortgages, and like, we just need money. So it's not all about the money, but on some level we need money. So I always tell people like, how beautiful to be able to make money doing something you love and then benefiting the animal kingdom. So we have a full training program for that. Like we talked about earlier, you don't have to have any experience whatsoever. This is something you can learn to do. It's a skill, it's a muscle to be developed. And if you're interested, you can just head on over to my website. It's nikkivasconez.com. You can read all about it, and I'd love to chat more with you if you guys are interested in that.
Wonderful. Yes, we definitely are living in the physical world. I've occasionally had people say, oh, if you were truly spiritual, you wouldn't charge for this. But we are living in a physical world where we eat, our animals eat. Where I live, you need air conditioning. You could probably live
Lynn,
without heat, but you couldn't live without air conditioning.
I get that too. And I always tell people you would never ask an artist to paint you a painting for free. People just don't perceive as what we do as something tangible, but it's
Yes.
still a service. It's still our
Yeah.
time, and we can't do it all day long. And like you said, we have bills.
Yeah. Big ones if you have an online business sometimes.
Yeah.
So, Nikki, given what you've shared today, what is one thing you'd like to leave us with? Like a next step that listeners can do to create some changes in their own lives?
The number one thing I want people to know and to really believe is that you don't have to be miserable working a job that you hate. Like, I know stepping out of your career into a career in animal communication might seem so far-fetched, but with over 160 students that are in my program doing it, like, it's absolutely a reality. I did it. So if I did it, why can't you? And I just want to tell you, like, you deserve freedom and you deserve joy. And if you love animals and this is igniting something within you, just know that you absolutely, from the bottom of my heart, have the ability to do this. And if you have the desire, that means you have the gift, and that means it's possible for you.
Yes, amen to that. Well, Nikki, thank you so much for your time and participation.
Thank you, Lynn. I always get so excited talking about this, especially if, we can help just one person who never knew this was possible just realize that, hey, their animals do understand them. So I appreciate you very much.
I appreciate you too. What a great session with Nikki. Thank you all for listening.